You ever wonder why you feel like you're slowly disappearing, even though everything around you looks the same? Why some days feel heavy even though nothing is visibly wrong? Let's stop pretending. No one talks about this because it sounds cruel, but deep down, you know it's true. You are fading, not because your body is broken, not because life treated you unfairly. You're fading because somewhere between your 30s and now, you started believing a lie so subtle, so rational, that it disguised itself as truth. The lie that your moment has already passed, that your best chapter is already written, that now you should settle into what is and quietly surrender what could have been. And the most dangerous part, you've convinced yourself it's wisdom, that this slow resignation is maturity, that letting go of that fire inside you is just part of growing up. But it isn't. It's programming, and it's killing you from within. Every time you look back and say, I used to have more energy, what you're really whispering to your own soul is, I'm not enough anymore. That statement isn't just false, it's criminal. Because the mind, your powerful, obedient mind, hears that phrase and doesn't debate it. It accepts it. It builds around it. It locks you into a pattern where dreams are dismissed before they even become thoughts, where you no longer try not because you can't, but because you've convinced yourself not to. And then you look for noble-sounding justifications. I've changed. That's not who I am anymore. It's not realistic. But the truth is brutal. You're not being realistic. You're being ruled by fear. You're watching the clock and calling it fate. You're crafting elegant excuses and disguising them as maturity. The sad truth? Most people over 40 have already written their ending, not with a dramatic announcement, not with a declaration, but silently, in their heads. In the moments they repeat to themselves that the best is behind them. In the small, almost invisible ways they settle for less than they once dared to want. It shows up in phrases like, I'm too old for that now, or, that's for the younger generation. Little sentences that sound so harmless but carry the weight of finality. They chip away at your drive, your curiosity, your sense of possibility. They don't just slow you down, they stop you altogether. And you don't even notice it happening until one day you wake up and realize years have passed. And you've been living on autopilot, calling it peace when it's really just quiet surrender. But here's the twist. Your age isn't the enemy. The real enemy is the story you've been telling yourself about what your age means. You've repeated these stories so often they've become subconscious scripts programming that runs your entire life without you even noticing. The subconscious mind doesn't care about time. It doesn't ask if what you're thinking is true or helpful or liberating. It simply obeys. If you tell it I'm too old, it agrees. If you tell it I can't anymore, it complies. If you say it's too late, it doesn't argue, it executes. That's how powerful and how dangerous your thoughts are. And this is why, if you don't consciously reprogram your mind, you'll live the same year over and over again and call it a life. You'll convince yourself that stagnation is stability, that routine is safety, and that unfulfillment is just a natural part of adulthood. But that's a lie too. Because somewhere out there, right now, there are people your age, older than you even, who are thriving, who decided they weren't done yet, who changed everything not because of luck or privilege or some late-in-life miracle, but because they refused to bow to a number on a calendar. They understood that age doesn't confine you, it sharpens you. It gives you perspective, depth, discernment. At 45, 50, 57, you've fallen enough times to know how to truly rise. You've lost enough to know what matters. You've failed enough to understand that failure doesn't kill you, fear does. And if you're still not convinced, then look at the story of Antonio Ferrer. Just an ordinary man, 48 years old, a plumber. One Monday, without notice, he's fired. Just like that, useful one day, discarded the next. And in the days that followed, the only thing louder than the silence was his inner voice. I'm too old, it said. No one's going to hire me now. He didn't shout it. He didn't scream it. He simply repeated it quietly, over and over, until his body began to believe it. He moved slower. He stopped making eye contact. His shoulders slumped. His energy drained. Not because his body couldn't, but because his mind wouldn't. Then one day, standing in front of a mirror, something broke. Or maybe something woke up. He asked a single question. What if this is a lie? And in that moment, a new story began. Not with magic, not with inspiration, with reprogramming, with repetition, with force. He began speaking differently to himself. I have experience. I have knowledge. I have value. At first it felt fake. It felt forced. But he said it anyway, day after day, until the new narrative started to overwrite the old one. He stopped calling himself a plumber and started calling himself a leak prevention specialist. He wasn't just solving problems, he was anticipating them. He wasn't selling time, he was offering peace of mind. And it changed everything. He found clients, built a small team, created a business, built income, confidence, vision. But most importantly, he built a new identity. One that wasn't based on age or defeat or the past. One that was born from possibility, from reprogramming, from a decision that you can make too. Because this isn't about being 40 or 50 or 60. This is about refusing to die before you're dead. This is about realizing that the only thing stopping you is a story, and stories can be rewritten. You are not your age. You are not your past. You are not the sum of missed chances. You are the author of what comes next. And that next chapter? It starts the moment you stop believing the lie. So let's ask a harder question. What story have you been living by? What lie have you repeated so many times that your life began to match it? What beliefs have been quietly killing your drive, your confidence, your fire? Because until you face them head on, you will keep living a reduced version of the life that was meant for you. And you know it. You felt it. That quiet tug in your chest. That ache that shows up when you hear someone else doing what you once dreamed of. That discomfort isn't a coincidence. It's your soul trying to break free from the cage you built with logic and fear. So the real question isn't, can you still do it? It's, are you finally willing to believe something new? Because belief is where everything starts. The hardest prison to escape is the one you don't even realize you're in. And by the time you see the bars, it feels too late. You've already decorated the cell, made it comfortable, called it normal. Maybe you even told yourself that everyone lives like this. That the quiet pain, the constant pressure, the dull ache in your chest is just part of being a responsible adult. But deep down, there's a truth you can't shake. You've betrayed yourself. Not in some dramatic, obvious way, but slowly, subtly. In all the small moments where you said yes when you wanted to say no. In the times you stayed silent when your soul was screaming. In the days you went along with a life that didn't feel like yours, just to keep the peace, keep the image, keep the illusion alive. You started folding, bending, shrinking, because it seemed safer to be accepted than to be authentic. And then you looked in the mirror and didn't recognize yourself, not because your face had changed, but because your fire had dimmed. That spark you had? It's still there. It didn't die. It got buried. Buried under the weight of what people expected from you. Buried under the need to be liked, respected, approved of. And so you started wearing masks. You became who they needed you to be. Reliable, predictable, safe. And yet the more you did that, the less alive you felt. Because the soul doesn't thrive on safety, it thrives on truth. It needs alignment, not applause. And when your life becomes a performance, your heart becomes a prisoner. You see, most people aren't tired because they're overworked. They're tired because they're disconnected. Disconnected from their own purpose, from their own boundaries, from their own soul. That's why no amount of sleep or vacation can fix the fatigue. You can't rest your way out of self-abandonment. You have to reclaim yourself. And that means letting go of the lie that says, this is just how it is. No, this is how it became. Because you made 1,000 quiet compromises. You stopped speaking up. You lowered your standards. You started tolerating things that once broke your spirit. And now you call it endurance. You call it strength. But really, it's surrender in disguise. And the people around you? They're used to the version of you that serves them. The version that doesn't rock the boat. The one that keeps the peace by sacrificing your own. And here's the brutal truth. If you suddenly started honoring your truth, if you started saying what you actually mean, if you stopped playing roles and started being real, most of them wouldn't applaud you. They'd resist you. They'd guilt you. They'd accuse you of changing. Because they don't love you, they love the version of you that makes their life easier. And when you stop being that version, their comfort gets disrupted. And suddenly you're difficult. selfish, different. But you're not different, you're just done pretending. And that's where real power begins. When you're willing to be misunderstood. When you're willing to walk alone rather than walk in circles. When you're willing to disappoint others in order to stop disappointing yourself. That kind of freedom doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like silence. Like sitting with yourself and feeling your own presence again. Like looking in the mirror and seeing your own eyes without shame. Like hearing your own voice and knowing you're not lying anymore. That's what healing sounds like, not loud, but honest. Not dramatic, but real. You don't need another strategy. You don't need another book, another seminar, another pep talk. What you need is permission. Permission to break the script. Permission to stop living for other people's approval. Permission to feel what you feel without apologizing for it. Permission to rebuild your life around what actually matters to you. But don't wait for someone else to give you that permission. That's the trap. You keep looking for someone to tell you it's okay to live differently. But they won't. Because your freedom threatens their illusion. Your truth makes their comfort uncomfortable. So you have to give that permission to yourself. You have to decide that your peace matters more than their opinion. That your purpose matters more than their expectations. That your time is too sacred to be spent performing for people who don't even see you. And no, it won't be easy. Reclaiming yourself means losing things. Losing comfort. Losing relationships. Losing a false sense of identity. But what you gain in return is far more valuable. You gain your energy back. You gain your clarity. You gain the kind of self-respect that can't be bought or borrowed. And most of all, you gain the power to create a life that actually fits you, a life that doesn't just look good from the outside, but feels right on the inside. You'll start noticing the difference in strange ways. You'll stop rushing. You'll stop explaining yourself so much. You'll feel less urgency to respond to everyone. You'll crave solitude not because you're isolating, but because your own presence becomes enough. You'll speak less, but when you do, your words will carry weight. You'll stop needing validation because you'll start trusting your own voice, and that voice will guide you. It'll tell you when something's off. It'll tell you when it's time to leave, when it's time to create, when it's time to begin again, and this time, you'll listen. Because the truth is, it was never too late. It was never about your age or your past or your mistakes. It was always about how long you'd keep living under a story that wasn't yours. And now you know. Now you see the bars. Now you can walk free. But freedom isn't a moment, it's a decision you make every day. To be real, to be whole, to be unshakably yourself in a world that profits from your confusion. That's the revolution. That's the comeback. And it doesn't start someday. It starts the moment you stop abandoning who you really are.